letting people know, like, now I can explain decisions I made with a clear head. You know what I'm saying? Like, back then, I really didn't know shit. I was just trying shit out, so I shouldn't have been so vocal about it.
Iman Shumpert has to make a one-time seven-figure payment to Teyana. What? That's crazy. What is that about, roundabout? What do you think?
$1 million or more.
This would be like my healing chapter. I was right about that. A lot of wounds are being closed.
This wasn't a snap judgment or a spur-of-the-moment fallout. What happened in that courtroom was the final chapter of a story that had been unraveling quietly for years. Long before the lawyers, the filings, and the jaw-dropping numbers, this marriage was already under strain. The silence just hit it better. Behind closed doors, the cracks had been widening. Missed moments, growing resentment, power shifts that neither of them knew how to navigate. While the public saw red carpets, performances, and family photos, the relationship itself was reportedly battling instability that never made it to Instagram. By the time the divorce papers were filed, the emotional separation had already happened. That's why the courtroom felt so heavy. It wasn't just about money. It was about finality. The realization that there was no more room for compromise, no version of this story where they quietly worked things out behind the scenes. When the judge spoke, it confirmed what had been building for years. This was no longer a private matter, and there was no going back. For Teyana, the moment marked closure. Her exit wasn't dramatic, it was deliberate. A woman walking away from a chapter she had already emotionally survived. For Iman, it was the opposite. The ruling made everything real at once. The loss of control, the public exposure, the financial consequences, and the understanding that the life he once knew was officially over. And that's why people are still talking. Not because a celebrity marriage ended, but because the courtroom stripped away the polished image and revealed the cost of a relationship that collapsed long before the public ever knew it was breaking. It was years of frustration, sacrifice, pain, and financial imbalance bubbling to the surface until it finally exploded. To understand how the courtroom reached that intense moment, you have to go back and understand what their marriage looked like behind the cameras, away from the red carpets, away from Instagram highlights, away from the curated perfection the world believed music in. The real story didn't live in the photos or the cute family videos. It lived between the arguments, the quiet resentments, the late-night disagreements, and the financial pressure that slowly crept in and reshaped everything. There was a time when Teyana Taylor and Iman Shumpert looked unstoppable. They were the couple everyone rooted for. The creative powerhouse and the athlete with undeniable charisma. She was the music, the art, the fashion, the vision. He was the energy, the confidence, the protector. Together, they had a chemistry that felt unbreakable. But what people didn't see was how much Teyana carried, how much she worked, how much she sacrificed, not just emotionally, but financially, physically, creatively. She wasn't just a singer. She was filming, recording, directing, choreographing, and being a full-time mother. She was the engine that kept the household running. And when she later spoke about feeling unappreciated, she didn't just mean emotionally. She meant financially, practically, realistically. Because while Iman had strong moments in his NBA career, his income, music, wasn't consistent. There were contract gaps, trades, injuries, pauses, and uncertainty. Whenever life threw them a curveball, it was Teyana stepping, music, up quietly without applause, without announcing it to the world. Inside the courtroom, all of this finally surfaced. Spectators said they had never seen so many documents in one celebrity divorce hearing. Folders labeled everything from marital assets to support contributions were stacked high on Teyana's legal team's table. When her lawyers opened them, it felt like peeling back the layers of a story the public only thought it understood. Iman walked in nervous. Anyone could see that. He rubbed his hands together, looked at the floor, whispered constantly to his lawyer. Every time money came up, he shifted in his seat. Every time Teyana's lawyers read off another financial contribution she made, he blinked, music, hard as if he knew this day was coming, but still wasn't ready to face it. And then there was Teyana, calm, composed, expression unreadable, not cold, not angry, just done. Mute, completely finished. People who saw her said she sat there the way someone sits after fighting a long battle alone and finally reaching the exit. She barely moved, barely reacted. It was as if she had already made peace with the outcome before stepping into the building. Then came the moment when everything shifted. Teyana's lawyer stood up and began explaining how their finances actually worked over the years. Not in a dramatic, emotional, or accusatory tone. Just plain facts, numbers, dates, receipts, payments she covered during seasons when his income slowed, household expenses she carried, investments she funded to keep their future stable, time she paid bills. Alone, quietly without throwing it in his face, time she worked through exhaustion because someone had to hold the family together. People said the judge looked genuinely surprised, not because Iman was irresponsible, but because Teyana had carried far more of the weight than anyone realized. And when the documents comparing her financial contributions to his were presented, the courtroom grew tense and silent, the kind of silence that makes her chest tighten. Iman's shoulders stiffened, his hands locked together so tightly they turned pale. When the judge asked whether he wanted to respond, he didn't look up at first. He just breathed slowly like he was trying to stop himself from falling apart. And then the judge delivered the ruling. Based on the evidence presented, the court rules that Miss Teyana Taylor is entitled to a financial settlement in the amount of $10 million. $10 million. The number echoed. Even people outside the room said they heard the gasp ripple through the space. Iman's head snapped up. His eyes widened. His mouth moved like he tried to speak, but nothing came out at first. Then, barely audible, he whispered, 10. His voice cracked, and when the full weight of the ruling hit him, everything broke. At first, he buried his face in his hands. Then, his shoulders began to shake. His lawyer leaned in, trying to calm him, whispering something to help him breathe, but nothing seemed to reach him. The man who once stood tall on NBA courts now looked shattered. Teyana never turned her head, not even once. Music, she stared straight ahead, focused on the judge, as if looking back would pull her into a place she'd already left behind. Observers said it didn't feel cold. It felt like acceptance. The acceptance that comes when someone has tried everything to save something that was already falling apart. But the financial ruling wasn't the only heavy moment. Things became even more emotional when custody came into the discussion. When the judge asked about childcare responsibilities, Iman finally spoke. His voice cracked as he said he loved his children more than anything, that he needed them, that he wasn't perfect, but he was trying. According to insiders, he wiped his face, cleared his throat, and whispered, "Please don't take them from me." Even the lawyers paused. Teyana didn't argue. She didn't attack him. She didn't accuse him of anything. She simply explained that she wanted stability for the kids, routine, structure, emotional safety. She made it clear she wasn't trying to take them away from their father, but wanted to protect their peace. The judge nodded, taking in her explanation, and emphasized that the children's best interests would be the priority above money, pride, or public perception. When the hearing ended, the room erupted into movement. Just because Iman once played in the NBA doesn't mean this situation is about Teyana trying to cash out. In fact, Iman Shumpert hasn't played professional basketball since 2020. But once the final divorce terms came down, reality hit hard, and reportedly, so did his emotions. After being ordered to make a massive one-time payout to Teyana Taylor, the breakup suddenly looked very different. And for Iman, it wasn't looking good financially. Iman and Teyana were long viewed as one of Hollywood's most solid couples. So when news broke in 2023 that they were divorcing, fans were stunned, especially since the split initially appeared quiet, mutual, and respectful. But how this divorce became public told a very different story. Teyana later revealed that she begged for privacy from the very beginning, saying that Iman took that away from her. According to court records, Teyana originally filed for divorce using only initials, specifically to keep the matter out of the public eye. That all changed on Thanksgiving 2023, when Iman filed documents using both of their full legal names, effectively putting the divorce on blast. As Teyana explained, they had already been separated for a full year, quietly, until that filing forced everything into the spotlight. From there, things escalated fast. In a stunning turn, a Georgia judge later ordered Iman to make a one-time seven-figure payment to Teyana, widely reported to be around $10 million. That ruling marked a clear breaking point, not because the outcome was unexpected, but because the numbers left no room to negotiate. Legally and financially, the marriage was officially over. Teyana walked away with significant control. She retained full ownership of her companies, along with her jewelry, luxury vehicles, tour bus, and multiple marital properties. Iman kept his investment holdings and select real estate, but several of his requests were denied, including one that raised serious eyebrows. He allegedly asked the court to return gifts he had given Teyana during the marriage, including jewelry and a condo, and even requested partial royalties from projects she worked on before they were together. Those demands didn't sit well with the public and fueled online backlash. Custody became another major point of tension. Teyana currently has primary custody of their daughters. Iman, who was initially granted limited custody time, later requested a week-on, week-off arrangement. However, court testimony suggested that his work and travel schedule often prevents him from taking additional time, even when it's offered. Then came the financial pushback. Iman reportedly argued that the child support amount was excessive, citing a pay gap between him and Teyana. But court filings painted a different picture, showing his alleged monthly spending exceeds $100,000, covering dining, podcast production, music projects, and frequent travel. Even deeper issues surfaced. Teyana accused Iman of repeated infidelity throughout the marriage, including during pregnancy and after attempts at reconciliation. She stated that she tried to leave multiple times before finally filing, citing emotional distress and instability. Iman denied many of the claims and acknowledged one physical altercation, saying he restrained Teyana during an argument. No criminal charges were filed by either side, but the image fans once believed in was completely shattered. What was first framed as a peaceful, mutual separation ultimately unraveled under court scrutiny. The records revealed a relationship fractured long before the public ever knew. And once the legal process began, reconciliation was no longer on the table. Public reaction has been divided. Some criticized Iman, while others questioned marriage itself, calling it financially risky. But one thing is clear: a decade-long relationship has now been reduced to court documents, custody schedules, and a reported multi-million-dollar settlement. Teyana stayed mostly silent. Iman faced the final numbers. And once the names were unsealed, there was no way to put this back into private.